From being the Latin lover to being the insanely smart Latin ladies man, the Mexican Spitfire, exotic sex pot to the watered down versions of both stereotypes, the maid to the elevated or comfortable casting maid, the foreigner to being the foreigner who was finally accepted into a group full of potheads, to the cartel gangster, and now a gangster with an actual appealing story that somehow complements the stereotypes. Latinos had a wild roller coaster for sure in the last century in Hollywood. However, in the wake of greater things to come, we have yet to see until in recent years more stories about Latinos being portrayed as irregular families or supernatural villains or even superheroes. This was definitely a concern in Victoria's journey. Can this be proven in 2023 that we have finally, after so long of keeping our fight for proper and positive Latinx representation, can we finally say that we have accomplished that step and we are heading somewhere great? Or are we doomed to fall back just like we were during the golden era?
Hi, my name is Natalie Feliciano. I am an aspiring filmmaker, self-published writer, and current college student at Bright Point Community College, where today I will be presenting as part of the Mellons Research Fellowship project at Bright Point Community College, Behind the Lack of Latinx Representation. With the screenplay originally written by me, Valiente, I'll be breaking down today more elements of the screenplay, comparing Latinx representation from then to now. Of course, with statistics and everything, and then see the mistakes of the past versus the hopes of the future. Original screenplay that is part of my project, Valiente, Victoria, as mentioned in the last episode, was turned down for the role of Willow.
An upcoming superhero with no ethnical status, just an upcoming superhero, for the first and most popular streaming service known to mankind, Netflix. But what I didn't tell you is that after she did the Sofia Vergara accent, she was going to possibly be given the role of Willow, only in the circumstances of changing the character's name to Maria. Now remember, before you totally freak out, this screenplay takes place in the 2010s, and yes, she did get fired at the end of the screenplay, so don't worry. However, this kind of thing was common but very uncommon when it came to Latinx talent auditioning for these kind of parts.
I mean, Mario Lopez once told the casting director of Saved by the Bell to please cast him in a more Americanized role because they kept casting him in Mexican stereotypes as a Mexican.
It was so bad that many actors like Edward James Olmos, Oscar Isaac, and Anita Page were all encouraged to change their names to sound more and appeal more to Americanized audiences because their names were just too exotic for Hollywood, and it wouldn't get them parts unless it was a Latinx stereotype. Little do they know that when representation is presented on screen, the biggest consumers on the markets are Latinx families and are the reason why they get richer and richer every year.
Then throughout the screenplay, we see Victoria go back to her independent game portraying Pilar Sanchez on a local show called Revival of Stardust. I totally made up, and I hope it never actually comes into light. The show that I created for the screenplay is about a nerd who gets magical powers and, well, out of nowhere to start with, and now he's somehow a ladies' man because of these powers, and he somehow gets his dream girl. I don't know. It's just for the screenplay, okay? It's just for the screenplay. You don't have to think long and hard about it.
Anyway, she is portrayed as the stereotype she becomes frustrated with, and although it isn't exactly a real-life stereotype for Latinx talent, it transitions into another one that is very real for Latinas in Hollywood. Victoria, throughout her career, portrayed the Mexican sidekick, which she kind of portrays through her brother Mario on this show, but with a lot of twisting on the watered-down version of the spicy Latina attributes. She is fetishized by the main character, Dusty, whose actor that portrays him, Luke Myers, compares Victoria to, wait for it, Fez. Ouch. Because of this, Victoria becomes wildly frustrated with her career, realizing that this is the only impossible gigs that she can ever get during these times. However, thanks to her subconscious...
No, she's not crazy. She just dyed her hair red, and maybe she just realized that the future does have some kind of hope. Like I mentioned in the first episode of Latinx Landmarks, our introduction to Hollywood was being the Mexicans in Birth of the Nation. And then all the stereotypes that we are still known as to this day and fetishized as during the silent era. So I think it's safe to say that there is some kind of hope for the future.
As you can see, in the smear of just a decade, the cause of Latinx representation has made tremendous progress, as mentioned throughout my last episodes. We've had a great recall of amazing stories and shows displayed on our television screens. Introduction of Latinx culture in a healthier light, and in most cases, the exceptional efforts to make Latino superheroes or on the bullet chain with larger-than-life characters. You see what I did there? Bad Bunny, Bad Bunny, Bad Bunny. But do you notice a pattern here? Most of these great attributes are the same people I've talked about for the last 2 episodes, because as of the 2020s, only flipping 5 to mere 7% has been featured in Hollywood productions, making not even half of that percentage even positive representation. Most of them got canceled anyways.
It's not to say that there hasn't been great progress throughout the years, but again, it's a very complicated subject. Because according to a NBC report done based on the USC study conducted at the University of Southern California,
more than half of leading and co-leading Hispanic Latino actors who were girls and women across the 1,300 movies examined, including 6 out of the 7 lead/co-lead actors in 2019. Yet Hispanic and Latina girls and women still represented only 1.9% of all leads and co-leads across the 1,300 films.
Whether in leading roles or across all speaking characters, the absence of Hispanic and Latino actors and characters is noticeable, said Ariana Case, the study lead's author. This community represents nearly 20% of the U.S. population and nearly half of Los Angeles residents, and yet remain almost invisible on screen. And along with the unfortunate decline in Latinx talent examined throughout the 13-year time period on the report,
in 2019, 35 movies did not feature a single Hispanic or Latino-speaking character across the plot, which is consistent with the overtime trends. A total of 567 movies out of the 1,300 that were examined were missing Hispanic and Latinos, meaning 43.6% of the most popular films of the last 13 years didn't feature even one Hispanic or Latino character.
Yes, we have made some strides then and there, but to add the final touches of how aching the situation and frustrating the situation can be, in a HuffPost article entitled, "Why Doesn't Hollywood Care About Latino Stories?" we are exposed to the harsh realities of how Latino stories are treated behind the scenes, despite their heightened successes with audiences. As the article highlights, when Warner Brothers disposed of Batgirl, starring DC Comics' first Afro-Latino lead, Leslie Grace, and then shelved Claudia Forestes' Gordita Chronicles, it seemed like Hollywood is only continuing to divest from Latino stories. The media industry already lacks partly in representation of Latino workers, from service jobs to executive roles. Although Latinos are the largest minority in the United States, standing at a whopping 18.7% as of recent times, they represent only 3.1% of the lead actors in TV shows in 2022. According to the latest Latino and Media report, only 1.5 of TV showrunners and 1.3 of directors were Latino. In Hollywood, the goalpost for success is ever shifting, and access to streaming data is shouted in history. Several Latino or showrunners told HuffPost, many wonder whether projects led by Latino showrunners receive equal investment in the first place, from budget and proper marketing to adequate time to build audiences. With cancellation of these series, it begs the question, does Hollywood care about bolstering Latino talent and stories? Or is it just done for views? So if this was a roller coaster for everyone tuning in into today's episode, just imagine how scary it was for Victoria to see into the future and be learning all of this stuff back in 2010. I mean, again, I'm not a math person, but 10 years is a long time to have this conversation still weighing over our heads and still have a long way to go, unfortunately. And I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. So maybe there's going to be a part 2 to this video sometime in the future, in like 2050. Anyways, guys, that wraps up today's episode. I hope that wasn't too much for anyone. Now you know how representation was then versus now for the Latinx community in Hollywood. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Next time we will be diving into the screenplay one more time to discuss the negative psychological impacts on the Latinx community due to the stereotypes and due to the representation that we covered for the last couple of episodes. I'm Natalie Feliciano, and I'll see you next time. Bye!